Thank you, everybody, for coming in today. Welcome to another session of Edible Software. Today, we're going to be talking about purchases. Primarily, we're going to be talking about some of the extra screens that we did not cover in our last training. So we are just going to go ahead and jump right into this. So we're going to go to the Purchases menu. And what I'm going to do today is I am going to be talking about some of these other screens up here, but I'm going to skip straight to the add-on POs screen really quickly and talk about add-on POs since we didn't go through them very much in our last training. So add-on POs, of course, are any non-inventory charges that you yourselves are incurring and you want to roll into the value of the item. So a very common example of this is a freight fee. Now, what I did was I just went to the Purchases menu and clicked on the add-on PO screen. This is a way that you can do it to create an add-on PO from scratch if need be, which I will show you how to do. But bear in mind, you can go ahead and access the add-on PO screen or many of these add-on PO screens from the Purchases Orders screen or the Receiving Inventory screen as well. So you can access this screen from them really quickly. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and create an add-on PO from scratch. I'll go ahead and over on the right side, click New. I'm going to select my vendor. So this is the vendor that I'm being charged for the non-inventory charge. So whatever my freight vendor is, I'll go ahead and select that. It will generate a PO number for you on the right side. It's exactly like generating an invoice number or a PO number in the system for normal purchases. So it just continues on starting from 1 and continuing up. It will start with a U number to indicate that it is an add-on PO. So anytime you see a U number, you will know that this is an add-on PO for purchases. One quick note on that. You will notice that when we talk about our non-inventory purchases, but something that we've covered already is add-on PO for sales. The main difference between add-on PO for sales and add-on POs for purchases is the add-on POs for sales started with an M number. That's an indication that this is a non-inventory charge. Now, this is a non-inventory charge, but this charge will roll into the value of the items that you are referencing. So it is considered an inventory payable when it comes down to actually creating the payable invoice. So just bear that in mind. That's one of the major differences between an add-on PO for purchases and an add-on PO for sales. After I've selected my vendor, I'll go ahead and select my add-on type. So in this case, I'm choosing freight in. You may have many other add-on types. There might be handling fees, inspection fees, anything like that. So these are any fee or any charge that you are accumulating. And when you're creating the add-on types, just bear in mind under code maintenance, it will ask you to choose a chart of account or a general ledger account to tie it to. Regardless of what you choose, for an add-on PO for purchase, rather than an add-on PO for sale, but an add-on PO for purchase, just goes directly into your normal cost of goods sold posting account. So regardless of what you choose when setting up this add-on PO type, it's going to roll into your normal cost of goods sold. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my total add-on cost. So let's say this vendor for my freight is charging me $200. And I'm going to go ahead and click Add PO. There we go. So it's going to pull up all of my purchase orders. Now these can be received purchase orders. These can be open purchase orders. I can create an add-on PO at any given point. So you don't have to add it as soon as you created the purchase order, and you don't have to wait until you've received it. You can create an add-on PO at any given point. So I'm going to go ahead and select one that I want. Let's go ahead and say Freshworks. So they're charging me for inventory and for freight. So I'm going to go ahead and select them, click OK. And it will go ahead and add the items on that purchase order that I'm referencing. I can add multiple purchase orders to this add-on PO, so I can reference an entire load if I wanted to. I can reference if this freight companies actually picking up multiple purchases for me, I can add whatever I need to. So you don't have to limit an add-on PO to one single purchase order. Once I have everything that I want in here, I will go ahead and see how I want to allocate this $200 or how I want to distribute. I can do it manually. I can just go in and put in, all right, I just want to split it in half. So 100 here and 100 here. So when it's highlighted in blue, it just indicates that this is a fixed amount that I manually put in. So you can do that, or if you want it to be easy and you don't really care as much about how it's distributed, you can choose an allocate add-on cost by option over here. So we've got weight. If you're working with weighted items, they'll distribute by the weight. If you're working with cubic feet, if you have that information entered for those items, you can select cubic feet. Master count is just the number of units, and then received pallets is based on the number of pallets that were received, and then the value, of course, is based on the cost. So if I allocate by master count, I've got 10 and 10, so essentially this should just split evenly. Oh, and I'm wrong, actually. Oh, because it's based on a different unit of measure. That is why. So I can see that it's split based on my master count. If I did it by value, it would be just a little bit different. So as you can see, it's just a little bit different based on however I'm choosing to distribute. But I'll just go ahead and hit select all. As long as I have a remaining balance of 0, I can go ahead and save. All right. And I can print from here, I can void from here, whatever I need to do, I can edit from here. So if there were any changes made to the purchase order, the only real difference, or the only real thing that you would need to edit on here, other than the cost of the add-on, if that changed, is maybe we added something to the purchase order. So if we added something to the purchase order, you could come directly back to this add-on PO, select that add-on that we're working with. So if this is not the one that I'm working on, I can go ahead and select another one. Click edit, and I don't have anything to add right now, but just letting you know, down at the bottom, there's an append lines option. So when you append lines, if you added something to the purchase order, the normal inventory purchase order, it will go ahead and add that line in here as well. And then I can redistribute as needed. So bear that in mind. If an add-on PO has been created for a purchase order, however, if you did go ahead and if anything else changed on the purchase order, such as the cost or anything like that, or maybe you just introduced more quantity to an item, that will automatically update on this add-on. So no worries on that. Some basic notes on the add-on, some other stuff you can change. You can enter in some order notes if you wanted to. These are just general order notes. You can also change the date. Now, this is a big thing that we recommend paying attention to, because if you created an add-on PO for a purchase, we do recommend that they fall within the same fiscal period. That will make things much easier when you're closing out your months or closing out those periods. So if you created an inventory purchase order and received the inventory on the 31st, but the add-on PO was set for the 2nd of the next month, we would want to backdate that. The invoice date can be whenever it needs to be, but we want the add-on PO to be within that same period. All right, I can go ahead and save. And some other information like shipping information, you can have that same shipping information that belongs in the purchase order. You can add that to an add-on PO as well. We've got a lot of the same features in here, like this PO and receiving screen. That will jump to the purchase order screen for this, this reference line item, or the receiving screen for that reference line item. Create invoice will jump straight to the payable invoice area. So it's the same thing as in the normal receiving inventory screen. So you can hit create invoice and it'll just jump straight over there with this vendor and PO selected for you. And then cost details. So we looked at this in the normal purchase order and receiving screen as well. But here we can go ahead and select a line item and hit my cost details. And I can see not only the inventory cost from this vendor, but I can see any add-ons that apply to that vendor as well, or any add-ons that apply to that line item. So here I can see my total calculated cost includes this add-on PO. And I can have multiple add-ons from different vendors for different reasons, whatever the case. I can have as many add-ons as I need for this particular lot number. So you're not limited to however many add-ons you have. So if you have a freight fee, like I said, a handling fee or anything like that, you could have all of those entered in. You would just have to create different add-ons for each one of those. All right. So that's creating an add-on from scratch. I do want to go ahead and show you the creating an add-on from the orders or the inventory receiving screen itself. So just to show you, when I open up the purchases, orders, inventory screen, I have a cluster of buttons down at the bottom that indicate or that are just quick buttons to these add-on screens. Okay, so if I created a new order, or let me just go ahead and select one that already exists. So I've got this cluster of buttons down here. F8 is exactly the same thing as what we were working on earlier. So that's just creating an add-on from scratch, doesn't have a vendor selected or anything like that. So exactly the same screen. The next one is Shift F8. When creating an order or when creating an add-on from here, Shift F8 is typically what we recommend only because it's a little bit easier. It already has the PO selected for you, and it also has the vendor selected for you. So if you have to, create an add-on PO from here, and the vendor is different, you can just go ahead and change the vendor. Select your add-on type, enter in your cost, but you don't have to add PO or anything like that. It's already selected, so you just need to go and put in the amount, allocate as needed, and click Save. Otherwise, all of the same steps that we talked about previously are in there. Now we're talking about some other add-ons as well in here. So both of these are your inventory add-ons that reference a vendor of some kind. You're paying somebody for that service. Now these other ones, the Control F8 and the Shift F9, are options indicating not internal add-ons. So the Control F8 option is the distributed internal add-on. Now, as you can see, it's the same exact screen. No major differences. The only thing so much for the inventory, they're going to include maybe 5 cents or 50 cents on top of that unit price just to make sure that they have a margin to work with. So that is an option there, but essentially it all acts the same way. The Shift F9 option is a little bit different. It is an internal add-on. However, it requires some setup before we can really use it. When you are talking about a calculated internal add-on, it is looking at the inventory item master, and this is set up per item. So if I go into this cilantro special item that I have pulled up in this purchase order, I can see if there is an internal calculated add-on. So if I go into the miscellaneous tab, I'm looking down here at the bottom right, and it says internal add-on amount per master UOM. So if I had like I said earlier, 50 cents or something like that. As soon as I mark this item as saved or received, it will go ahead and create an internal add-on for me based on this amount and based on your system settings that indicate what's the add-on type and how is it distributed. So if I had those things set up, it would go ahead and create an add-on PO for me. I don't have to do anything. It would just indicate to me that an internal add-on was created for that item. And just to show you the system settings that control that as well, I'll take you to inventory, or I apologize, PO2. And these are the settings that I was talking about. So if we choose to auto create these add-ons, this is how we choose to distribute, and then we choose what is the typical add-on type assigned to it. So the Shift F9 option in the purchase order screen is really just to see if that calculated add-on was created, what does it look like? So as you can see, there really isn't a way for me to put in a cost or anything like that. It is purely for calculation purposes. Now, if I didn't have that auto calculate option selected, I could come in here and go ahead and choose my add-on type and select, but my total add-on cost is based on whatever I put in the item master. So that cannot be touched. That is pre-filled based on that setting. Get it there. And I'll just void that. Okay. So those are your different add-on types, and of course they all have their own add-on PO screens here. So here are the two internal add-ons that we talked about. We're not going to talk about interest accruing add-ons. It's more client-specific, not too many people use it. So we're going to go ahead and skip that today. The add-on status form is very nice. What it's basically used for, it's very similar to the add-on status form for sales that we looked at a little while ago. The screen is based on the inventory purchase order. So it's not actually based on the add-on PO you've created, it's based on the inventory purchase order that's being referenced. So if I set my date range, I can look at for inventory purchase orders within a specific date range. I can look up for specific load IDs if I wanted to. I can look up for specific vendors if I wanted to. I can even only show certain add-on types, which right now is mostly just freighted, because that's all I've got. But I could even filter based on recurrent add-on POs, which we'll talk about in just a second. But regardless, once I have my filter option set, I can go ahead and click refresh, and it will show me my inventory purchase order information. It will show me my add-on information or any add-on information for that purchase order over here. So if I had multiple add-ons for the same item or for the same PO, it would show that inventory PO twice. So here I could go ahead and see this particular add-on. And on the add-on number or the inventory PO number, you do have the ability to drill down, and then we'll go ahead and open up the actual PO screen. So here it's going to open up the purchase order receiving screen. Over here, if I clicked on the add-on PO number, it would open up the add-on PO screen. But it's basically just showing you the build status of the inventory purchase order, showing you the build status of the add-on PO, as well as certain information like when it was created, what was the full amount, who created it, and who entered it. Excuse me. And of course, you can preview and print this just like any other grid screen where you can preview or export to Excel. You're pretty much getting exactly what you see in the screen as it looks. All right. So the recurrent add-on PO, I did want to talk about that really quickly before we move on. So if you are purchasing from a vendor and it is pretty regular that you have to pay another charge or this freight fee in order to get this inventory to you, you can go ahead and set up a recurrent add-on PO as a reminder when purchasing from this vendor. So again, we're going based on the inventory vendor. We're going to select that vendor in here, and I'm going to work with Hector Produce because I've already set them up with the recurrent add-on PO. But if I go ahead and look them up in the vendor master file under payables, I'll choose Hector, wherever he may be. There we go. And I go to the recurrent add-on PO screen. I can go ahead and enter in, and I can enter in multiple recurrent add-on POs if I have one, or if I have more than one. But in here, I've got one set up. I always have to pay a freight charge. Every single time I order from Hector, I always have to pay a freight charge to Freshworks in order to get this inventory over to me. So I went ahead and added that line, chose my freight one, chose the vendor that is actually I'm paying for this add-on type or this add-on charge. I can choose how I typically allocate. If I allocate at all, I can choose the standard price. Now this doesn't always, this may change. This is more just for default purposes. And then I can go ahead and upload or copy shipping information or my load ID from the purchase order itself. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new purchase order using Hector Produce to show you what having a recurrent add-on PO looks like. So here it's flashing at me down at the bottom telling me I typically have an add-on PO to create. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of items, just a few. I'll just add a couple. So 10 there, 5 there, and go ahead and put in a cost, 5, 5. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll go ahead and enter in a load ID. So go ahead and click save. All right, so I've saved this PO. Now I have the ability, it's not creating the add-on PO automatically for me. Again, this is just a warning saying, hey, I have, or a reminder, I should say, hey, you have a recurrent add-on PO to create. Now, if it's already been created and you click on this recurrent add-on PO button, it would show you that it was created and it would show you the PO number and everything like that. Or you could select in here to waive this. So if perchance Hector decided, you know what, we'll send this to you, or maybe it's a pickup order instead of a delivery order. So for whatever case, you can go ahead and waive this, and it would actually tell you who waived it and on what date. And if you noticed in that add-on PO status form that we were looking at earlier, it would show you waived add-on POs as well, or it would show you why it was waived. But if I wanted to, I can go ahead and just hit select down at the bottom, and it would take me to the add-on PO screen with the vendor selected, with the add-on type selected, with the standard cost selected, and it's already been allocated. So if this is good, and it went ahead and brought in my load ID. So if this is good, if this is all I needed to do, then I can click save. Otherwise, I can go ahead and change this information as needed. So maybe they only charge me 180 this time. So I'll just go ahead and reset and select all. And so it goes ahead and resets everything and distributes, and click save. So now this is just a normal add-on PO that I can edit, I can void, I can change however I need to. But as you can see, right after I did that, it selects the created on, gives me the PO number, and I am good to go. So now I have my two payables that I can create, my one for Hector Produce for the inventory itself, and I can create a payable invoice for Freshworks for the freight charge. The last part, or the last thing to talk about as far as add-ons go, is the add-on type cost. So the add-on type cost is very simple, very straightforward screen. It's basically there to show you what you have paid for these add-on costs in the past. So if I wanted to look up for like the last month, I can just go ahead and choose the beginning of the month to today. I can choose a specific add-on type if I wanted to. But otherwise, I can go ahead and click refresh, and it's going to show me every single time I use any of these add-ons, and these are specific add-on POs for purchases, and it'll just show me what I paid for those add-ons. So at closer to the beginning of the month, I paid $500. Near the end of the month, I'm starting to pay less. So you can just keep track of what you paid. Maybe you can notice if you did use different vendors, who's giving you a better charge or who's giving you a better price. And then, of course, you can export this, or I'm sorry, you can print this document as well. But it also gives you your total, of course, for the month. So if you are running for the month, you can just see, okay, what did I pay in add-on costs for the month? All right, so that's add-on POs. Now let's go ahead and cycle through some of these other screens really quickly. So they're pretty straightforward and pretty aptly named. We talked about the normal purchase orders, or the normal inventory purchase orders, I should say. So now what I want to do is talk about the non-inventory purchases. So not too many people, or not too many clients, use the non-inventory purchase orders. And the reason being is because most would simply create a non-inventory payable invoice and just call it a day, which is perfectly fine. So if you don't use these, there is no problem. However, the benefit to using this is kind of specific. If you are going out and actually buying non-inventory items, let's say you are going to Staples or somewhere else and buying office supplies, it might be nice to have a grocery list, essentially. So that is one benefit to using this, is the grocery list option. Other than just creating that payable invoice and sticking everything to your office supplies, we can actually specify what we bought, how much, and at what cost. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the purchases, orders, non-inventory screen. It's very similar as far as the setup when it comes to, or as, I apologize, as compared to the normal inventory PO. You're going to click New, select your vendor. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, I'm going to attempt to pronounce that. In here, it'll give you that M number. So again, this is a non-inventory purchase order. It has nothing to do with your inventory. It has nothing to do with any value of your inventory. So none of this, and it is considered a non-inventory payable. So it gives you your M number. You can specify a buyer, just like an inventory purchase order. You can put in your scheduled date and when you intend to receive. It gives you the information of who's creating this purchase order and if anybody modified it. And of course, you can put in some order notes and shipping information. So very similar options. The other major thing different behind non-inventory purchase orders and inventory purchase orders, if there wasn't enough difference already, is this has no suspense effect on your GL. So this does not affect your AP suspense when you actually mark this as received. So once you have created this, it will not hit your GL until you've actually created a payable invoice for it. However, it will affect closing out your fiscal periods. Remember when I mentioned that the add-on PO should probably be in the same fiscal period, I shouldn't say probably, should be in the same fiscal period as the normal purchase orders that they're referencing. The same thing with the non-inventory purchase orders. We want to make sure that we have these marked as received, because if we have any open non-inventory purchase orders, they will show up when you try to close out a month or close out a fiscal period. So just bear that in mind. To start adding items to this or adding lines to this, we go ahead and click Add Line. Since, of course, there are no items to be specified, there's no item lookups, so we're just going to mention what we bought. So here, paper towels, and I bought 5 boxes, and each box was $5. And then we can add more lines and say shrink wrap, and I bought 6 boxes, and each box was $3, and so on and so forth. So you can create that grocery list as I was mentioning. Go ahead and click Save, and we can go ahead and print this. We can copy this, much like the copy PO function for inventory purchase orders. We can see our print history. So very, very similar. And of course, this is just a draft. So I can come in, I can edit this, I can delete it, whatever I need to do. Once I actually do receive that and I have the receipt with me, I can go in to the purchases, receiving inventory, or I'm sorry, receiving non-inventory screen. I can go ahead and select that purchase order that I need. So this is going to just show me my open non-inventory purchase orders. And I can click edit and just compare as far as what I ordered versus what I received or what's on my receipt. I can go and receive all as needed or update the receipt quantity. But basically, once I'm done, I just click save. And just like in the inventory receiving screen, it will show up in red, indicating that this has been received. So again, this has no effect on your inventory. These are just items that you decided you wanted to mention that you bought, but all of this is non-inventory. So that is basically it. And then from there, you could create your non-inventory payable invoice by referencing that purchase order that we created. All right. Moving on, we've talked about some pretty much all of these other purchase order screens or receiving screens. So I'm going to jump down to change PO header. This is something that we didn't talk about last week. Very similar and very straightforward, just like the change SO header option that we talked about. The change PO header is there. If I created a purchase order or even started creating a purchase order and I noticed, oh, I chose the wrong vendor. Maybe I just clicked a little too fast or whatever the case may be, I can go ahead and save that purchase order as needed, come to this purchases change PO header screen, click old header, select the purchase order that I need to change. So let's say this River City Produce was the wrong vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So it shows me the status of that purchase order, and it shows me all the lines on that purchase order. So this can be done for open purchase orders or received purchase orders. It doesn't matter which. The only reason why you would not be able to change a purchase order header is if you went ahead and created a payable invoice, because of course that is a contract, and you said this is the vendor I'm paying. So for any received or open purchase order, we can go ahead and click new header after we've selected the old one and see who we are actually supposed to pay. So I chose a little bit too quickly. I said River City Produce, but it was actually supposed to be Risa. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, click Update, and PO header has been changed successfully. So now everything about this purchase order will be under Risa and not River City. So very straightforward, very nice tool to have if that happens. The auto-generated POs. So the auto-generated POs option is very similar, not exactly the same, but very similar to the inventory reorder list. You have some of the same features. We can choose to look up, well, and let me backtrack really quickly. This screen is here so that you can generate purchase orders for demand or for shortages if you wanted to. But essentially, this screen allows you to generate purchase orders for inventory that you absolutely need. So I can look up for a specific warehouse if I wanted to. I can look up the requested delivery dates for all my sales orders that are going out. So if I have sales orders that I know I need to look up for, I can go ahead and put in that date. I can put in a PO receiving date as well. Typically, it would match the delivery date to indicate, okay, do I already have purchase orders that might satisfy these? So that would be taken into consideration as far as your shortage calculation. You can choose for specific customers. So if this is based on a specific customer that I need to order for, I can go ahead and select that. Or of course, you can change for specific customers or groups or corporates. And then I can choose to display only short items, or I can display all items. Now I'm going to display all items because I currently don't have any short items in here. So I'm going to go ahead and just display all items. But if you wanted to, of course, is one of the main purposes, you can just display your short items that you need to purchase for. So I'm going to go ahead and click refresh. All right. And so I can take a look at for certain vendors that are marked as primary vendors for these items. If I select these vendors, I can see the items down here. I can look up any POs due in. I can look up pending sales orders, so I can see my shortage or my surplus over here. Or of course, I can just look up all items, or just items without a preferred vendor. So right now, that is none. But I'll just go ahead and look up all my items. And so here, I can see all of my purchasing, my sale information, and my shortage and my surplus. So as you can see, I pretty much have a surplus on everything right now. But let's say I wanted to go ahead and take care of this one, this beef sausage or this venison sausage. I have 35 on hand. I have a shortage, or I have a surplus of 30, which means I've got 5 to go out. So maybe I just want to take care or resatisfy or refurbish that 5 if I wanted to, whatever the case may be. Now I'm just kind of grasping at straws for an example. But if I was short, it would show me there, and I can go ahead and select a vendor that I want to purchase from. So it is going to populate with the preferred vendor. If I wanted to, I can change that. So if I wanted to, I could say quality fruit and veg, or for a sausage, it would make more sense for something else. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose HR. I'm going to go ahead and put in the amount that I need to order. So this says 5, or this says 5 that I need. I'm going to go ahead and put in 20. Maybe I just want to match, get a little bit more for stock. It does say vendor river right here. This is just showing the preferred vendors. That is purely for educational purposes. And then I can put in my pallet configuration here. I can go ahead and put in, and it'll show you what's unallocated over here on sales orders. And then if I wanted to order another amount, maybe I talked to HR already and they don't have all 20, so maybe they do 10 here, and I can order from somebody else to get the rest. So I can generate up to 2 purchase orders for this item. And of course, I can put in quantities for multiple items, select their vendors and everything like that. Once I have done that, once I've put in all of my quantities, selected all of my vendors, I just hit generate purchase orders. And it will ask me, when do you want the receiving date to be? I'm going to go ahead and say tomorrow or today, if I can receive it. Generate purchase orders, and it will generate the purchase order for me. So now, if I go to purchases, orders, inventory, I should see that purchase order that was created. And from here, you can print all of those purchase orders that you just created. So here I've got my H&R Foods and I've got my beef sausage that I created for. But from that screen, you can print that PO or all of those purchase orders as needed. And then you can print this report as well. So there's a couple of options to print the report for selected vendors, all items, shortage, surplus, all of that good stuff. But that is basically what the screen is for. So not necessarily to replace the inventory reorder list, because the inventory reorder list does have a lot more features on it, where you can specify, are you ordering for demand or are you ordering for stock and everything like that. But this is nice to show you very quickly what I need to satisfy for what's going out. Modify shipping information, very straightforward. It's just modifying shipping information for purchase orders that have already been created. You can do this on the purchase order or the receiving screen. So you could do that in there. This just allows you to do it in a different place. Excuse me. So I can select the purchase order that I want. I can look at my shipping information, or I can click edit and edit that shipping information. But that's basically all it is. Again, you can change that information on the orders inventory or the receiving inventory screen as well. POs in transit, very client specific. So there's not much to talk about in here, but just so you know what it is, you can set date ranges, ship date range or receiving date range. You can choose to modify fields and you can select specific vendors, but basically this is showing you purchase orders for that date range. And I believe I only have a couple. And it just shows me really quickly certain PO information, but mostly it's showing me my shipping information. It's showing me the vessel name, AWB number, container number, all that. And I can modify certain information in here. I can modify the BL number. I can modify the container number, vessel number. So a couple of different things that I can do in here that I can update. But again, it is primarily for shipping information. I can go to the purchase order screen as needed, and I can also select whether I want to receive into the destination warehouse or receive into at-sea warehouse. Now, the at-sea warehouse is primarily for those that are importing, so that doesn't affect a lot of our clients, but we do have that option. So that's pretty much that, and of course, you can export that screen to Excel for information. Again, it'll show you exactly what is in the grid. And then the last screen to talk about today is the purchase history screen. And again, very, very straightforward screen. There we go. It's basically just showing you item information and purchase information for those items. So you can specify a receive date from one date to another. You can specify for certain buyers, for certain priority one vendors. Just so you are aware, setting up a priority one vendor, because we do have it in certain screens and certain reports for a filter option. Setting up a priority one vendor, you do that per item in this vendor tab in the item master screen. So here we have, this screen is just showing you vendors that this item has been purchased from and their last purchase information. But you can edit and specify a vendor as a priority one vendor. Now you can have multiple priority one vendors for the same item. There's no restriction to that, but just bear in mind this is a one character field and it really just works with ones and zeros. If you ended up typing a 2 or a 3 or something like that, it really just acts like a 0. So really all this screen is looking for is ones, anything else is considered non-priority. So just bear that in mind. That is currently how this screen works and how this filter works. So if I want to look up for priority one vendors, it would just show me the priority one vendors that I currently have, and it'll show me all of the items that are assigned as a priority one vendor for that, all the items that are assigned to that priority one vendor. And of course, it's going to show you the purchase order information. So whether we're filtering by the vendor, it's really just the item that we're looking at. So even though this says River City, it's going to show me every purchase order that this item was purchased on within this date range. And then of course I can filter by inventory items as well. But in here, again, I can look that PO number up for more information. But really it's just showing that line item information, total quantity, weight, unit of measure, any cost variance, scanned images, anything like that. So very straightforward information. And of course, just like I said, it is a grid screen, so you can export this or print this out as needed, and it'll be exactly what you see here. But that's pretty much what this screen is. It's just a very quick look at purchase history for specific items. So anyway, that is essentially it as far as the extra screens and purchases that we wanted to cover. I hope you, well, if you didn't enjoy it, I hope you learned something. So I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, of course, like always, send us an email. Please contact us, whatever you need. And we will be continuing these trainings next week and for the foreseeable future. So if you need anything, just let us know. Otherwise, thank you guys for coming, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.